Right.
It's good to introduce him.
Right, call to order.
We haven't seen this guy in so long. Is he a new member?
Call to order. Welcome to the Sewer Authority Midcoastside Board of Directors regular meeting, Monday, August 25th. We're starting at 7:14. Roll call, please.
Director Kowalczyk?
Here.
Director Alfano?
Here.
Chair Harvey?
Here.
Director Ward?
Present.
Director
Here.
Logan? And Director Boyd?
Boyd said he's stuck in traffic, he'd be here. We're gonna go ahead and go without him, come in. So we'll go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You can flew away. All right, any public comment? If not, any oral communication?
Actually, there's going to be a special GCSD meeting on October 2nd, which is the day after we legally become a CSD.
Okay, all right, great.
So I'm hoping it'll be a short agenda and take a party break.
Okay, good.
Kind of like happened with the city council when they change
Post-election?
I guess, is it really done on election times or when you
One
rotate
right after.
officers? Well, in any case,
Okay,
hopefully we'll do something like that.
okay, and all are invited?
Public meeting.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and go on to item number 3, consent agenda. There are 3 items. A, approved minutes of July 28, 2014 board meeting. B, receive and file managers' monthly reports for July 2014, including A, monthly flow report, B, financial statement, C, monthly NPDES report, and D, collection system data, and C, approved disbursements for August 2014. Directors?
I think I had questions on disbursements, but I'll just double check here.
Anybody else have any questions? No, no. Rick?
Director Warren, last month you asked a question about the increased cost of printing. And one thing we realized that when we started doing some, for lack of a better word, forensic analysis on the printing costs is we had we did a lot of printing for the sewer science program, where we print up quite a bit of printed material for the students to come through to study the wastewater treatment plant, which was a one-off deal that month. In the future, it would probably be more cost effective, I think, maybe to outsource that bulk printing of that. But I think this came around, it was kind of a rush job in this case. So.
Okay. One of the things I think I'll have to ask offline, but if the other one that I have marked here is on the last page of the check detail. It's the top one, underground service alert. I'm wondering why the costs for underground service alert is only split 2 ways between pump station and sewer line GSD. I'd expect something from the other member agencies also, or do they handle their own USA?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I'm not sure whether the costs or how that, whether that's reflective of where the calls are coming into us for locates. If there's a significant amount of work being done over at GSD, then that might reflect that. I'll have to look into that.
It's hard to imagine that there's
100%.
nothing going on in the other 2 member agencies and there's that much in GSD.
I can find out for you.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Other than that, anything else? So,
I move approval of the consent agenda as listed by the chair.
okay, Leonard?
Second.
Okay, second by Ellen. Any further discussion? Okay, if not, then all those in favor?
Aye.
All those, okay, all opposed? Okay, so it passes. Let's go on to item number 4, old business. Receive update from ad hoc recycled water committee. Who's on the committee again?
I was cleaning my garage and I finally found the mascot again, the purple drops.
Purple water.
Brought him in.
So,
Rick, myself, and Scott are on the committee.
all right.
We really had a couple of really productive meetings, and I will tell you, I think from my viewpoint, having CCWD on there with Ken Coverdale and Dave Dixon coming also, I think we got off to a really good start. And then we immediately sat down with potentially our customer, Ocean Colony Partners, the golf course, and Bruce laid out his financial guidelines, and if we can fit within those guidelines, then the project is feasible. So far, it appears it's feasible. And I think the really light at the end of the tunnel is everybody seems to agree on what part each plays. You know, Sam produces a product, CCWD transports it and sells it to the retail customer, etc. So the last thing we did at the last meeting was to print up all of the old, I think, principles and guidelines from the previous recycled go-around. And if everybody is in agreement with those, which, you know, we have our fingers crossed we all are, then at our next meeting, you know, we're gonna get down to brass tacks of who starts putting some money up and how we go forward. The other good news is if the state water bond passes, I think there was $725 million in there for recycled water projects. Now, our plan is to not count on grants or state money or anything. Finance a project totally through local money, and if we can get grants or state money later, that's even more better, if that's the right way to say it.
That's good.
So it was very positive, and I think we're all feeling like we're going in the right direction. Do you agree, Rick?
Yeah, I think it was been real productive to have Bruce there, talk the real dollars. I can go this far, I can't go a penny over, put up good parameters, and I think it's the real decision to absolutely go ahead and do the golf course. Just do the project. We're not going to worry immediately about everything else in the world. Get the project done, get it up and running, show we can do it, show we're a success, it works, then add on. There's lots of other little options, but to make the thing just streamline it, make it work quickly, I think it's just get them up. We got the pipelines there, billing customer, just do it, and then we're.
Is CCWD still gonna take the lead on the creek crossing? Because they
That
have
was
the
my
expertise in
understanding.
getting that permitted.
Yeah, basically from where our pipe leaves our property, they take over from that point forward. Permits, cost, etc. So we're gonna produce a product, hand it over to CCWD, and then they're gonna go move it and retail it.
Now, I have one concern with one of the things you reported on about doing it and asking for the grants later. A whole lot of the grant money, they'll only give you for things you're gonna do, not for things you just did, which I think is really stupid, but you know, that's higher levels of government, that's the way they work.
Well, I think the project's gonna take long enough that we're gonna know the results of the state water bond initiative. And I think when we get ready to actually start putting money in the pot and hiring whoever, at that point, we may decide to spend some money to research grants and so forth. So you're right, we don't overlook something and then later say, oh, we should have done it a different way. But the goal is that we're not gonna let lack of grants stop the project,
Right.
okay?
So the plan is to look for all possible grants, not just pin it
Yes.
on the
Yep.
state water bond, which may not pass because if it's, is that the thing that includes stealing the Delta water for Southern California?
I think they took the tunnels out of this one.
Ah, okay. Because anything that includes that is probably not going to pass.
Well, I will tell you, I think it passed in the state government by a total, both sides voted except for one person. So there's a lot of support for it. But again, November's not that far away. We got plenty of, you know, it's gonna happen quickly. And we'll know if there's anything there available later. Okay?
Okay, thank you for that report. Rick, any more comments?
That's fine.
Scott, did you want to add anything to the water recycle report?
Add anything.
Alan said it was a good meeting, productive meeting, and
It was.
went well.
It was, it's a very good meeting.
I would like to say I really appreciate the minutes that are here. It's very helpful to have these minutes here.
Can I make a comment on the
Sure, of
second
course.
water meeting?
Yeah.
So, I appreciate the enthusiasm to let's get rolling, but my strong advice is to let's conclude getting rolling with any available grant process. I think it wouldn't be prudent to be backward looking at like, okay, we're rolling, let's go find some grants. I think it should be pointing into the spear on this one, because it's kind of, it's a starting point, so that's my comment.
Let me slightly requalify my comment. My comment was more oriented to, there are other customer options, like some other fields nearby, maybe pipe dream, go up to the Skylon up on top, investigate other pipelines to El Granada. Other projects is mainly what I was referring to, not the grant cycle. Just,
Okay.
we just want to get a project up and running, show everybody it works, get the quality of water. Then we can add on little farms or stuff as we go along later. So.
Okay.
Can you find out, you meaning the committee members, find out what condition the old CCWD El Granada water transmission
It has
pipeline is in?
been filled with dolomite.
With what?
It has been plugged. It is not a usable pipe. We have already explored that. That's that very question.
Been there, done that.
It was abandoned as a condition of approval for the other.
Well, there's multiple ways to abandon anything.
By filling various parts of it with dolomite, so, yeah, that's an abandoned pipe. I think for the grants, I mean, just to amplify what Rick said, there are a lot of things that we'd like to get done, but one thing that we're very clear on is that we have a project that is almost certainly achievable in a reasonably short period of time. CCWD is very confident about the funding, so that kind of thing, if we can get this done, then that part of it that we can get done, we probably should. We're certainly, as a committee, I think we're reaching some kind of consensus about feasibility and the reason to come back and propose something more, more material, so that we as a board can actually consider it. Having the conversation with the principal user of the proposed water was kind of an essential thing to do before we could actually try to turn this into something more substantial.
So how many gallons a day is he interested in at max?
Peak day would be 800,000 gallons of his demand. He has storage, not a whole lot of storage, but the storage that he does have, if he sees this thing going, he would then start applying for permits to do dredging to increase the size of his storage, which I believe he said is about 1/3 of what it's capable of, but no point in dredging if you don't have anything to put in it. No point in putting in for permits if you don't
get my golf balls back if he dredges.
But
We're actually going to sell.
You know how
golf
this
balls to
works,
pay for
right?
the
You put it in
project.
the water, you're making a donation. Unless you have ducks as friends who can go retrieve it for you.
I thought you were a good golfer.
But
So-
800,000 gallons a day, that's half the plant output.
Well, it's a lot of water, and I don't think anybody thinks that that's something that we would be producing as a daily maximum, but it's good to know what the demand is. He says that's like 3 to 5 days a year, so that provides a bit of an upper bound of what his and he couldn't take that as an instantaneous, because he doesn't take water directly out of the pipeline that comes from the wells now. He takes water from the ponds, and in fact, he doesn't take water from CCWD directly, he takes water from the ponds. So already, hopefully, you're gonna notice, if he ever needs to flush the tees and greens, he's gonna have to do the water from the ponds, which means he has to use all the recycled, and then get enough in the ponds from CCWD to be able to actually do the flushing, to wash away the salt buildup.
Do we make a 7-acre holding pond out here?
Well, you still have to pump it. It still has to get down there somewhere.
Yeah.
Can we hold it? We can talk about things we can do for storage. That's something we should do.
No, I'm thinking wetlands,
But-
flood it.
Well, and we've kicked this idea around about what we can do with various ways to dispose things. And I'm proposing we look at avoided costs of, if we can avoid big spending on the outfall, we may be able to turn that spending instead to something that allows us to do an on-surface or subsurface discharge that might cost a lot less than replacing or doing the continuous upkeep on the outfall.
But the thing is, the big flow out the outfalls during the winter when he doesn't need the water as much or at all.
You're going to some of the details that are,
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is there's this kind of big picture of things. The reason to talk about peak day and his storage, as you think about what kind of facility suits their needs, we're not gonna be able to build a facility here that's going to suit their instantaneous peak day demand, because you don't water during certain times, you water during the times where you don't have golfers on the course. You know, so that limits right there when you can water. So they'll be able to put some into their holding during maybe those parts of the day when golfers are on the courses, but can only hold so much. So you can see they're gonna have a really interesting operational issue to try to get enough from us, but not too much, play with their storage to be able to do things like the monthly flushing, the tees and greens. Just timing it all, it's gonna be a real operational challenge.
So is his desired target to not take any CCWD water and not take anything from the
No,
wells?
his desire is to reduce the take from CCWD by about 35 million gallons a year.
What's that on a percentage?
What is that gonna be, about a third? They've brought the water demand down, I think, from 135 million to about 94 million this year. And he wants to take another chunk off of that. But he has no desire to knock it all the way down to zero.
Why not?
We didn't really explore that question,
They
but
need other water too, it's
Right.
not just like, that's not all at the golf course.
But if they could take all of the plant output, that would cut their CCOBD draw by what, 2/3 or
they can't
something?
take all the plant output, they got nowhere to keep it.
How big's the golf course?
And they also only need the water from, I think he said, I mean, they really need the water from like May to September. So,
And at the end of the day, his wells are doing better. They're not in a life or death situation today, but they can't afford to take the chance that if we have a long-term drought, they end up shutting down the golf course. So
Right.
Bruce understands, and he's told this to the owners, even if this costs them more money to get into a long-term contract to really finance this, it's wise business. So if we have the biggest, wettest winter a couple months from now, whatever, they're still gonna be on board because they can't take the chance of a prolonged drought. They can live with almost anything else, but they can't live without water.
Now, one of the other things that I thought we were gonna get out of this when we had the original round of discussions was reducing dramatically the draw from the pipes next to the creek so that the lagoon comes back.
so he's made it very clear, he would plan to put the wells in, well, he would take them out of service. He would run them enough to keep them functional, but he has already made commitments that he has been very clear he will keep, to not produce the wells.
So that would let
But
this,
also to hold on to the wells, because nobody who has wells in their right mind would ever turn loose of them, so.
right, so that would allow the creek during reasonable years to, the creek health would be substantially improved, and maybe the lagoon will come back.
I think one can speculate that would be a benefit of this, yeah.
And by the way, when I got my CCOVD connection, I kept my well.
Yeah.
All right, any other do you have any planned meetings, the recycling committee?
We have one this week.
This week, okay.
Yeah, again, it's everybody, now that we've got Dwight on board from Montera, now we're planning out when we can meet, so we get everybody there. And I think once we agree to the principles and guidelines, then we look at what the next steps are. So it's getting very, very concrete. But as Rick said, we're very focused on just phase one. We're not trying to get diverted right this minute.
Our hope is that from the moment that we put in, that we start assembling for the permit applications, that we get all the way through the permitting within 18 months and be ready to hit the ground running at that point. We're talking about just the easiest way of getting the project built. Basically, straight shot across the creek, it's less than 300 feet. There's a lot of confidence that we could do it above ground, double sleeve pipe on a kind of a trellis.
There are things called pipe bridges.
Well, that's exactly the idea, and those are fairly common, even in sensitive habitats like that. That's why you do the double sleeve pipe. So if we dial this project all the way down to just very pragmatic stuff, he's got regulators dying to have him using recycled water instead of potable water. We've got regulators who have seen some of the things that we've done, like the last big project we did was on a neg deck. We got a lot of praise for what we pulled off there. We think the combination there is right to do maybe an 18-month full end-to-end on permitting, right? And that includes us and CCWD and OCP all playing different complementary roles in this.
Are there any thoughts yet on the technology, like,
It'd
are you
be a
thinking use
package
the
plan.
prepackaged
Yeah.
thing?
I think one of the things that we're trying to do, especially by having Dwight present from Montera, is just to make sure that we've got, as we go down this path as quickly as we can, make sure that we're not foreclosing any opportunities to do some of the other interesting things. CCWD really wants to get a purple pipe up to El Granada. Montera wouldn't mind a purple pipe all the way to Moss Beach. If we work together on that, I'm happy to help them. I think they'd be happy to help us. So we want to make sure that whatever we do in round one doesn't close the door on that stuff. But we also don't want to burden phase one with anything that would be encumbered by a speculative follow-on thing that we don't have funding for.
Okay, good. Good work, recycle committee, you've done a great job. Rick?
Good thing. Maybe we should consider letting this be the recycled water committee. It doesn't have to be an ad hoc committee. Maybe we just make it a committee, make it legitimate, full bore. I'm joking, anytime. It's listed as an ad hoc committee. I don't really know what that means. So.
Well, it means that it has a specific deliverable, and when the deliverable is completed, the committee ends, and it also means they don't have to have notice of public meetings. So if you make it a regular committee, then they're required to have notice of public
It
meetings.
also doesn't have to have regular scheduled meetings.
Then I'm going to let you stay ad hoc and
All right.
be quiet.
All right, so thank you very much. Let's go on to old business, item B. Discussion and possible action authorize engagement of SRT to complete SAM WWTP safety and reliability study. Rob?
Last month, the board had expressed the desire to have SRT basically stop work on a study that I had authorized to begin, so that there would be full opportunity for comment on the project and the process, and perhaps the outcome. And so in interest of that, we asked SRT, and they agreed to basically hold off on work, account for what they had done. And because I had put them on a fairly tight timeline, I wanted them to get this piece of work off of their desk and get us the deliverables back as rapidly as possible. And so in interest of that, I brought that back to the board for further discussion and hopefully some direction on where we would like to go from here.
Okay, so do we have any discussion? I'll start off in saying that the project's halfway done. I'd like to finish this project and get this done. So any board members, any
Is
comments?
this the item that we pushed from last meeting
Yes,
to this
correct.
one?
Yes.
So it was done at the request of Director Kowalczyk. Say something.
I'm at a loss for words. So I appreciate you, the board, waiting to hear me out on this. I have a couple of questions. One, who specifically is going to do the work? Is SRT going? They're going to subcontract this work.
No, SRT is actually they're doing they're building the matrix and they're doing the analysis. They may subcontract, although I haven't clarified this. It's the electrical system analysis. They may outsource that, but the assessment of the other deliverables is being done in-house by their.
And the electrical component, that is the same group that recommended the moving of electrical equipment within our yard?
I think they may go with or go base some of their conclusions off of some of the details that TJC developed. I've spoken with them, and as far as the relocation of it is not within the scope of what I've asked them to do. What I wanted them to look at it and say is, are there points of failure with the existing setup? Not necessarily going down the road of flooding, but what's the age of the equipment? What's the replaceability? What's the timeline? What's the cost? How long would we have to wait if we lost something like a key component? And that's it.
I'd like some assurances that criticality and priority of systems is going to be taken into account.
Correct. That's one of the key deliverables that I've asked them for is a risk matrix analysis of all these various items. So pumps, the age of the pumps, the useful life of the pumps, to the electrical system, any place that it is incapable of being backed up, or if we had, say, a lead time on parts because of age for, say, 6 months or something like that, that they would go through and identify that. And then that pretty much covers the scope of what we were able to do with the budget that we set forth on this. And what it does, I think it's going to, what it will do is largely point towards what a lot of the staff has already identified. We recognize the age of the switch gear is an issue. Some of the pumps have been identified. The single belt press not having a backup, so where we could switch one out, switch it out for maintenance, do maintenance on it while we operate the other one. Some of those things we are aware of. This is just getting basically an outside set of eyes to vet that concept.
And will there, I guess I'll just say, I'm not going to ask, but say, I expect there to be justification, some documented justification for that which is deemed to be the most urgent thing versus the least most urgent thing.
Absolutely.
So we can assess that. That's critical. And slightly unrelated, I'm just curious, do we have, is SRT under NDA and confidentiality agreements with SAM? Do we have those in place?
Why?
Do you know?
This is a public agency, what do you have in mind?
I would have to look into that. I'm not sure.
So I've received some feedback from around, some unpleasant talk and conversation about SAM and employees and board members around the area. And I don't want to say much more, I just want to make sure if we have nobody talking out of turn, saying derogatory comments. And that's as much as I want to say about that tonight. But you can, I think, see where I'm going with that. I expect vendors that work with SAM to represent SAM in the positive light, always.
So is this something you're going to require for every vendor that we work with?
I just have the question if we have confidentiality in here.
This
That's
would
my
be,
question.
this would be the kind of thing that if we're going to do this, this would need to be a uniformly applied policy, but.
Potentially, Scott, yes.
I really don't like the implication.
I didn't like hearing the feedback I received as well, so
Well,
it's.
we don't know what the feedback, I have no idea what you're talking about.
This is a public board meeting, and
Is
if you're gonna
this
bring up something, you know, honestly, if you're gonna bring up something like this,
Mhm.
you know, that's kind of a backhanded way to bring it into the conversation, and if it's really an issue, then we should have you know, a discussion on it.
I agree. My question is,
I don't like throwing out the stink bomb and saying you can't talk about it.
my question is, do we have the agreements in place, and we can bring, if you can look at that and find out for our next meeting, and I'd be happy to talk about it at that time.
I agree, we should agendize it for next time and talk about what's our policy, what do vendors agree to do or not agree to do, because I really don't know the answer to that. It's gonna be a good topic for next time.
I mean, while we're at it, Rick, there might be another firm that we've engaged recently that we might want to ask the same question of.
Certainly. Scott, I'm not implying anything should be one-sided, I have the question, right? So, and if.
Actually, Rick,
if-
there's no way you can bring up that kind of subject without everybody having a pretty good idea what you're talking about. So let's not act so innocent about it.
So
You
I'll
put it on
act
the
in-
table.
I'll
you
act
take a
innocent this
smelly-
way, Scott.
A smelly thing and put it on the table.
I'll act innocent this way, in that I'd like to know the answer to my question, and if it's something we choose to enact as a board, it should apply universally.
The good question being, do we have a confidentiality
Agreement in place. Yes.
Okay, so, you know, that's all we need to talk about, because we're not gonna you're not gonna give us any further information
I
about what
would
happened.
do-
So if you're not, which is fine, then, we have future, we have direction.
Absolutely.
We can't
If
talk
you-
about it now.
We can't talk about it now
No.
anyway, so,
Well, now, in terms
Anything
of, in
quick?
terms of what is to be agendized, I don't wanna see it referred to as an NDA, because what I think Rick is really asking for is a non-disparagement clause, which is totally different from NDA.
It's usually inclusive.
Well, I'm gonna be totally opposed to any NDA type of stuff. The non-disparagement I'll support.
okay.
I guess
So-
that's fair clarification, thank you.
Okay, so Robert, all set for direction for the next, for a
If we
future
could-
meeting?
If I could, I'd like to ask council to be prepared to help us sort through what we can and cannot do. And I'd also like to get some counsel, if we can, on how we might approach the kinds of concerns that may have brought this issue forward.
So let's
Those are all my comments on this.
let's go ahead and, so do we have any other further we're on 4B, authorized engagement of SRT to complete sound project. So do we have any more discussion or motion? Yes.
One more comment is,
Sure.
after we vote on this item, I'd like to suggest we discuss a peer review of this work.
Well, let's do one thing at a time.
Sure, certainly, yeah, let's do that. Okay, I'm good, so I'm good with this item.
We're on this item. Is there a motion or?
I would make a motion that we authorize the general manager to engage SRT consultants as the lowest possible responsible bidder to complete Sewer Authority Midcoastside wastewater treatment plant safety and reliability study amended.
I'll second that.
Okay, so it's, any further discussion? All right, could we just take a vote, a voice vote, or do you need a roll call for this?
Do a roll call.
Jim? Let's go do a roll call then, please, Susie.
Director Qualtrics?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Director Alfano?
That's me.
Just can't
Yes.
read. Chair Harvey?
Aye.
Director Boyd?
Aye.
Director Warren?
Aye.
Director Lovin?
Yes.
Okay, there's a comment to make, Rick?
Yeah, I'd like to ask that we direct the general manager to bring back options for a peer review of this work before we take into account with SRT's report up.
Right?
Okay, so wait, hold on, so you're asking for a peer review, so we will, this is not on the agenda, so I think that we can give Rob, direction to look into the peer review, what it
That would work
involves.
for me, to have come back at our next meeting with an approach to do a peer review of the work from the item we just approved.
But in the meantime, the work is gonna continue. We've approved the continuation of the work. So, Rick, Alan, do you have a comment?
No, I think with a study that's this critical, I think it's money well spent to do a peer review. I've seen this before, when you're really concerned that, you're getting exactly what you're looking for. I think even though there could be some redundancy in something this critical, I think it's money well spent. So I'm very anxious to hear from the GM of what firms he thinks would be good for this, what the cost would be, and so forth.
The last time we did a peer review was for $1 million project. In fact, I think that's the only time we've done a peer review.
No, we did a peer review on a $12 million project that wound up with us doing an $860,000 project instead.
Well, that's the one I was referring to.
That was a $12 million proposal, and we thought that that what we got as work product from that was, quite frankly, ridiculous. We brought in 3 firms to do peer review, and they produced a report, which gave us kind of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in order of priority list of things to go do, and we now have completed items 1 and 2 of that for all told under $2 million. Generally, I'm inclined to think that peer review should be saved for things where we've seen the work product and we have substantial questions about it. Seems odd to put that up front.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we're going to, we're going to talk about a peer review. Rob is going to find out what that would involve. He's gonna make recommendations for this particular project.
I think we can do
Correct.
that, and SRT was moving fairly quickly, so they may actually be able to start back up and get this knocked out pretty quick. So we might, I could foresee where we might actually have the ability to bring what they have generated before the board and work from there too.
Okay, so it's a direction to look at a peer review at this point. It's not on the agenda right now. We're not gonna make any decision right now.
So, if I look at, we'll have some option to consider it at the next meeting. So, great, perfect, thank you.
All right, any further discussion on that? Okay, so we go on to new business, 5A, authorize manager to purchase new combination vacuum flusher truck.
Well, this is, last year, specifications were developed for basically an upgraded vacuum flusher truck. The industry standards with the modern vacuum trucks are, they're considerably more capable than the smaller trailers that we have right now. They generate greater pressures, they can clean longer routes and produce more volumes. And towards that end, the board had authorized during the budget process this year in March, setting aside about $300,000 to facilitate the purchase of a new vacuum flusher truck. Bids were solicited through the NJPA, which functions very similarly to the GSA. It's the Government Services Administration for doing bulk purchases nationwide. Vector came back to us with a quote based through Owen Equipment for $298,738. So they managed to come in under budget by $1,262. We had to sit down and really kind of hammer some things out, but with that, the original amount set aside in reserves was $324,000, so that would leave $25,262 left in reserves towards that flusher truck. So we came in under budget. There may be a few things that we might want to consider purchasing for the flusher truck once we use it enough to understand more what it's capable of, things like longer hose or maybe longer reach, a smaller diameter hose, things like that. So my request would be to authorize me to start work on this purchase. The lead time is 8 to 9 months on the truck itself, so the timing is fairly considerable. And then with the board's discretion to allow the $24,000 that is remaining to budget be set aside for purchases of other parts and pieces for the Vector if they become necessary, things like backup cameras or maybe a nozzle camera, some of the things that we had looked at but decided to wait on.
How much do you think we saved by going through NJPA?
At least $10,000.
Did you check with Costco?
Yeah, but you'd have to get a 2-pack.
I would if I could.
Then you have to deal with all the plastic wrap.
Hey, Rob, you that's it.
Just one quick question. Yeah, we talked about the license. Sorry. Does that require a Class B or Class C? I forget.
It's a Class B with what they call an air brake and tanker endorsement. We've had some discussions with staff on how to implement that. One of the things we're looking at is if we can get we're in the hiring process now looking for an operator or for a collection services worker, is to find one that actually has a Class B driver so we can do right seat, left seat, basically driver training. There's two ways to go about this. We could take our employees and have them sit down and study here and then send them off to DMV with a pat on the back and a prayer and say, take the test. Or what I found in my past workings, particularly up at North Lake Tahoe, where I had the same issue with getting the staff up and trained, is it's actually more cost effective to send them off to one of these truck driving schools for 4 or 5 days where they get 100% immersion on this kind of thing. And with pretty close to a guarantee that they'll pass, because the walk-arounds and things like that can be pretty intricate. And so with that condition, I think what the model I'm going to come back to the board with and ask for permission to pursue is going to be start sending the staff off to school to get qualified on these. So I think that'll be the fastest way, because I've run into cases where it's taken individual 5 trips to the DMV to fully pass all the walkarounds, the driving tests, things like that. And when you think about labor and time and the drive time and the staff out of service to do something like that, it really does pay more to.
Yeah.
How many of the?
Hold on a second. Rick?
So I just want to commend you for that approach. I think it's always wise to give our staff, our employees, the best training. We expect high performance, and I think we should give everybody the tools they need, including the training they need to do a great job. So I really respect that approach, so thanks for bringing that to us.
Okay, well, Leonard.
How many of the current staff would you plan on having trained for the, and acquiring the license?
Immediately, well, in the short term, we would need 2 to 3. We have basically we'll have a full crew of 4. Over time, one of my goals is to get people cross-trained here with enough depth so that in a pinch, if say we had an emergency at a pump station where we really needed one of these things, that functionally we could call up just about anybody on the staff as a qualified driver, maybe not necessarily an operator on a day-to-day basis, but actually has the license and the training to get in the vehicle and say take it from base out to the field on an emergency basis. And I think over time, these kind of cross-training tasks, sometimes they take years to really get everybody up to speed and comfortable and get the cross certifications. But I think one of the key things with the staff here is going to be approaching cross-training and various job skills so that whoever is sitting in Tony's seat or can pick or choose on a given day, say, well, somebody's out sick and somebody else is on vacation. If everybody is more cross-qualified, it's a tremendous relief both to the staff, who has a lot more flexibility to go away on vacation, and it gives us more depth with the staffing models. And so I've been putting together some proposals and some costs towards that end that I'll be presenting probably at the next board meeting for review.
Are the out-of-pocket costs minimal? It's just the time spent studying that's the big cost?
With the license, I think the cost to SAM, if we were to sit them down and train them here and then send them off to DMV, is really it's the travel time back and forth, and then I'm trying to recall if I ever knew anybody that passed that test on the first time out. There's a lot of moving parts on these vehicles, and they're pretty sticklers on it. And so if you look at, say, 4 hours of staff time out and back, and you do that twice, and you take the impact of that on the crew as far as the manpower basis, the $600 for the class or the $700 class, when you offset it against the number of times these people have had to go out and back, generally balances out. And you have to be honest, you have a lot more staff comfort also with it. They're going in and they're getting their questions answered and their hands held to a certain degree. It's a pretty intimidating test to be walking around on a piece of equipment with that many moving parts and having somebody saying, what does that do, what's this, name that. So.
Okay, any other directors? Okay, do I have a motion?
I'd make a motion that we authorize the manager to purchase new combination vacuum flusher truck from Owen Equipment for the amount of $298,738 and no pennies.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, do we need a roll call vote for this? Now, let's go ahead.
Do we need a roll call vote for anything?
Resolutions typically. For money, I prefer that.
Big money.
Let's go ahead and have a roll call vote. Thank you, Susan.
Director Qualcheck?
Yes.
Director Alfano?
Yes.
Chair Harvey?
Aye.
Director Boyd?
Aye.
Director Warren?
Aye.
Director Loman?
Yes. I just say yes, so it's 3-3 every time.
Okay, fine, so it passes. 5B, authorize manager to purchase pump-based repairs.
This project was identified and approved by the board in the July 22nd, 2013 board meeting. When it was put on hold, I believe because some of the pending work that Stolowski and Gonzalez had out at the wet weather flow management project, and so they never got around to doing some of the work on this. After being dormant for a year and a half, Tony put it back out for a quote to get the work done, and that changed that from a $9,500 quote up to $10,450. But it is essentially the same project that was approved by the board. Just the amount of money has changed a little bit. And if you look at the back of your 5B staff report, you'll see a copy of the staff report dating from July 22nd, 2013 for reference. And so what we've got now is we've got a contractor ready and willing to do the work, and we need authorization for the revised amount to move forward.
All right, okay, thank you. Any board members?
I move that we authorize the manager to expend $10,450 to repair damaged pump bases for number 3 water pumps 1 and 2.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it passes. Going on to 5C, authorize manager to purchase primary clarifier drive units.
We've looked at replacing the clarifier drive units, and two things, they're all they're kind of proprietarily constructed. And so we went out and we wanted to take a look at what would it cost to, have somebody else come, another provider come in and retrofit these things. And the cost would be significant because they would have to actually remove the unit, do, custom fabricating to make a different drive system fit, and then reinstall it. And so what Tony has been working with the original equipment manufacturer to get quotes to replace 2 that are beyond their useful life by several years. And one thing that the vendor does offer is a very significant discount if we buy 3. And one of Tony's philosophies has been to keep the third one, have parts in reserve for high ticket items. And with I believe it's a $22,000 discount if we purchase 3. So it is a very hefty discount, and we
This
do
is the
know
Costco shrink wrap 3-pack.
to effect it is. And so what it is it allows us to replace 2 drives immediately and keep 1 in reserve for a unit that isn't as long in the tooth, but it saves us some money, and it keeps an existing part on the shelf for us. For
How big is this? Like, are you gonna keep it indoors somewhere?
Gabe, how big is that? That's
if it is just a drive,
Mhm.
it's, I don't know, probably 10 length by 3 or 4 foot wide, and including a motor, or I don't know if the motor includes or just the drive by itself.
So you expect to be able to find someplace
We'll
indoors to stash
we'll
it?
keep it indoors. I'm not gonna buy something brand new for that kind of money.
So we're gonna keep it in the boardroom, which is also cafeteria. It's also
We can make it our
great.
monolith.
That's a movie room.
Bathroom's got a lot of empty space.
That's right. All right. Okay, so do we have a motion, any comments? Do we have a motion?
From the numbers here, it looks like that's a really substantial unit cost savings to get
Doesn't sound like
3 of them.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I move we authorize the manager to purchase replacement primary clarifier drives for $68,000 plus shipping.
Okay.
The shipping's $102,000.
And to make it really clear, this is to purchase 3.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
Okay, any other further discussion? If not, all those in favor? say
aye.
Aye.
Aye. No one opposed, it passes. All right, we'll go on to general manager's report. Rob?
Hey, I just wanted to give a my monthly quick thumbnail of some of the activities that have happened around here. The manhole hardening project that was to take place, that's been identified to take place over at Burnham Strip after the wet weather flow management project had gone in. I don't know if you were aware, but when they go and they cut the grass there, when Caltrans comes through, they infrequently hit the manholes and they damage them. So the idea was to build more robust concrete rings around them so that when they do get connected with the mowers, it doesn't knock them askew.
But Caltrans doesn't mow
Or,
the
well,
site.
I'm not sure who, I apologize for
It's
that.
whoever GSD hires.
Oh, okay, so,
Really?
well,
Can we send you the bill?
You know,
That's,
hey,
well, that's,
Send
I-
them.
that's perfect.
Well, send you the
the
bill, well, they're acting as your agent, right?
you know, by the way, when I drove by the other day, the last 2 times I drove by, I had a hard time seeing where it was.
Drive by on Obispo.
It looks like it's like the weeds have pretty much
No, Jim,
evened out.
drive by on Obispo.
Okay.
It's
Go ahead.
Anyway, they've been, apparently historically, they've been, knocked askance by equipment and just, maybe the amount of traffic going through there, no knock on any contractors. I thought it was Caltrans that did shoulder mowing. I apologize for that.
Well, they do their section, but when you look at the Burnham Strip, most people think that the part that GSD bought goes all the way up to the highway, but the Caltrans right-of-way is 150 feet with the highway built on the west side of it. So there's still, like 90 feet on our side that's Caltrans, not ours.
And well, that's what we think is where the locations of these manholes would fit with that 90-foot setback, I think.
Right,
'cause
the project is barely, but is fully contained on our property.
well,
Now, there's the IPS that's in the Caltrans right-of-way, just on the other side of the property line.
But I think Rob had a good point, saying that they should be protected.
yeah. So anyway, the work's been done, and so they should be a lot more, hitting it with the equipment or anything like that shouldn't be knocking the barrels loose of the rings or anything like that.
Okay. Go ahead, Rob.
We're, technical services supervisor Pullen has been working with Eaton. We're trying to put together a testing protocol to come out and look at the breaker system here. And one of the key questions is, when is the safest time to take the plant offline without, low flows, without disrupting operations, things like that. And we're still working through that, but it looks like we will be doing that kind of testing Monday through Friday at about 11 o'clock at night. Not this week, but in the next several weeks, we'll be working towards that.
Is that really the lowest flow time? I'd expect it to be like 2 a.m.
Well, the work will, when they come and they start mobilizing on site, will be around 11. I would expect that when they actually power down the plant and take things, and take a look at everything and clean it, that it'll probably fall more in that 1 o'clock too, before things come back up.
Now, is this building on that breaker?
The entire plant site's on that breaker.
You might want to think about whether there's a way to change that without spending a ton of money, but get this building on a somewhat separate circuit.
That'd be one of the things we're looking at. If we put some significant resources into upgrading the equipment in its existing location or whatever, is to build in some redundancy if we wanted to come in with, say, backup power, like a portable power trailer or something like that, which I may one day recommend, I think is a good solution. And to be able to separate off maybe the operational facility for maybe a smaller generator as a backup with a plug or something like that. There's a lot of options out there, but we haven't really done the work yet to enumerate what they are, but the ability to create some redundancy and some serviceability is where we would be looking.
Okay.
Long term, I think. We're working on some job description updates. Been working with Tony to really do kind of a knowledge dump on all the things that he has taken on over the years, and they're significant, and then start trying to find what boxes some of those tasks might fit in with staff. And I'll have a detailed report available for you at the next board meeting as far as what I think is a financially prudent and effective plan going forward. So we're working on that. The overall goal ultimately will be to get all the job descriptions updated before we go into union negotiations next year. That's something I think really kind of facilitates good negotiating when everybody has come to an agreement about what the current status of their job really is. Then it seems to defuse a lot of contentious issues with staff, and I think it's overdue here. So we're working on that. We're in the very end stages of audit prep. We'll have our auditors will be on site the rest of this week. I think Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Mm-hmm. And they're deliverable. They're looking at mid-October.
Yes.
Mid-October.
For the October board meeting.
October board meeting.
Hopefully if all goes well.
Do you want to we're doing some preliminary work on the digester flare gas line, which is a 4-inch stainless steel line that takes the digester, the methane gases that are generated, and sends it over to where the flare is to flare it off to atmosphere. For whatever reason, back when the place was designed, it was actually it comes out of the digester, makes a kind of a U, goes underground, and then comes back up. And if you think about what that is, it's a natural water trap. And so we have a lot of issues with condensation going and snuffing out the flare. And so I think for a relatively simple design would be to move that 4-inch stainless line up with some unistrut and go across the top, elevated basically, and then put a drain in the bottom that you can get at instead of having it buried underground. So we're conceptually thinking about how we can make that happen inexpensively to stop we get overtime call-outs for things like this where the digester flare blows out and because of condensation accumulation. We have to come out, drain, restart it.
This might be an appropriate time to relook at something that I brought up about 16 years ago.
Every 2 years, every 3 years.
I haven't mentioned it.
I have.
Oh.
We talked about cogen on and off for quite some
Yeah,
time.
we had discussed either getting a turbine to generate power and maybe run this building off of that, or else using the gas to heat the building. And, I'll tell you offline why that never went anywhere, but you know, maybe it'll pencil out now.
Sure.
So something for you to evaluate to see if it could work now.
Oh, absolutely. There's been a tremendous amount of advances in solar and cogeneration technology even within the last 2 to 3 years.
I just hate the idea of wasting it by burning it off. Let's use it for something.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, what you might come up with affects this potentially, so you might want to research that before putting money into this fix.
My hope is that this fix would be inexpensive enough and expedient enough to save us a significant amount of overtime, and that we're not talking about a big project. I mean, to be honest, if I were in the private contracting world, I would have this done with my personal labor already. It's not difficult. It's something that I think has been just out on the periphery, but I think there's an opportunity to save a lot of overtime in the short term that might even offset the cost of the actual construction. And not eliminate the need to study the cogen, but if we wanted to take a look at the overall, how do we maximize our alternative power sources, and maybe roll that into the discussion of the overall upgrade of the plant power system also.
Okay, Rob, go ahead. Thank you.
We are looking at the air vac on the outfall out here on the beach has got a lot, I don't know how often, well, especially with the bridge closed, you get out to take a look at it, but there's a significant amount of corrosion on it. And so Tony's been doing some pricing, looking at getting a stainless steel air vac to replace that and what that might take. Thumbnail estimates somewhere $6,000, $12,000 or something like that, just because of the, but I would recommend going with stainless if you're gonna go to the effort of putting something out in an environment that's that close to the seashore. It'd be better to upgrade it.
I wonder though, is stainless useful? I think paint is probably more useful, because somebody found out regarding the Core 10 bridge, the bridge was made with some sort of metal that's supposed to rust, and then the theory is that it protects the rest of the metal, but of course, you know, as we all know, in theory there's no difference between theory and practice, but in practice there is. So it didn't work. So I'm just a little wary of the unpainted stainless steel.
And it's, you know, we could look at, you know, some, you know, to see what the state of the art is with epoxy coatings and things like that. Maybe there are better answers out there now. It's worth looking at. I'm bringing this up as there's a cost coming down the road for replacement of that that's overdue, just because of its existing conditions, whether it's stainless steel or some kind of a hardened epoxy coating. We're doing some survey work to clean up locations. What we're looking at is eventually trying to get a GIS map layer of our facilities, something that we might be able to bring online with, say, the county's storm drain maps, things like that. So if we have overflows or incidents, we know where the storm drain discharges are and things like that. And so we're beginning to take looks at how to, you know, getting accurate surveys of some of our facility locations and put it into basically a geodatabase.
And elevate the elevations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great.
Did you look into coordinating that with GSD's capital asset management system?
We are. We've got a temporary sodium hypochlorite tank that's been tested and is installed up here. That's just an update of what I told you about before, how we had the failure around the flange on hypo tank existing, and so while we're trying to determine what the best fix is, or the best replacement tank to buy, is we have a temporary one in here for backup. We had a few odor complaints coming out of Portola Pump Station, and we think it was related to just the amount of water we were putting into the biomass for the odor scrubber. And so we've been dialing that back, because if you get too much water on it, it blinds it off, so it can't pull the airflow through the mast to basically scrub it.
I put in one of those calls and I checked it and it didn't seem excessively damp to me.
This was maybe a week ago when we started adjusting this down, or maybe even longer, maybe 10 days ago.
I can't remember exactly. I think the call I put in, well, it was during the week, because Susie answered. I absolutely do not remember when it was.
Yeah. Anyway, what we're doing is taking kind of a scientific approach to turning the water up, gradually over time, instead of just blasting it and seeing what happens. And so we're trying to find that sweet spot to isolate that. Other work that needs to be done, cleaning out the wet well, doing some grease removal, things like that, we're looking at to at least maybe get rid of some of those orders. One thing I have noticed is it seems like there's been a lot of, for lack of a better word, fish odor coming out off the harbor lately. Mm-hmm. And I guess historically there are times of year when there are significant die-offs or beachings that may be contributory to that. We've been working on updating our emergency contact list for our mutual aid. We're getting ready to do standby generator annual preventative maintenance inspections. And Tony's been working on getting competitive quotes on the annual video inspection of the outfall, and I think he just received those very late last week. Cross training continues. I touched on that before, and we're in the final period. Tony and I of going through the updating the collection services agreement for the city. So I know that's been on Alex's wish list for a while. We're with a few minor things that we wanted to discuss with him as far as operational potential. That might we may have more capability with the new flusher truck, and we want to make sure this contract reflects that additional capability. So other than that, I think we're
Great. He's anxious to get traction. That's great.
Meetings, Recycled Water Committee met twice. Tony and I met with Rocket Farms in Ox Mountain to discuss short-term permit extensions for their discharge permits. We've had 4 weekly staff meetings and 4 management team meetings. And the only thing that's in error there is the member agency general manager meeting that usually goes off on last Thursday didn't happen. I think we had Clemens out on vacation, and I think there might have been a conflict with Chuck. Anticipated agenda items, wastewater treatment plant reliability study. I hope to have that done prior to it should be done before the next board meeting. And I will have a transition plan and a financial analysis for the technical services supervisor for the upcoming retirement in December. Tentatively, that date looks like it might be about December 11th. So we're moving with some urgency to try and get the knowledge capture done on 2020. And with that, that is the end of my report, and I'm open for questions if
Well, I have one obvious one in light of yesterday's events. A lot of the plant is old enough that earthquake construction standards have changed, and so I'm wondering how much of the plant we have to worry about. Like I see this big steel beam here, but the generator, I believe, is mounted in a 1980 or 82 footing, and with current knowledge of earthquake stuff, how solid is the generator mount? Things like that.
I think it'd be a worthwhile study to take a look. Take a look from a risk analysis of seismically where we're at. With that said, when I think it was the Loma Prieta quake for us. I mean, apparently it shook this facility pretty hard, and we managed to weather that pretty good, so knock on wood. It's been stress tested worse than it did, than happened Sunday, but as far as what, modern standards, that I'm sure over time that those standards for generator mounting, things like that, tie downs for things like tanks, they've probably changed, and it'd be worth looking at.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's a handful of things that probably need to be looked at, the generator and the big liquid storage tanks.
At the recycled water meeting, we had the golf course expressed concerns about the oxynot and leachate coming in, what that could do to the recycled water. Are we gonna look at that as part of this thing?
He sent me some information, and I've forwarded it to Tony, and we're gonna take a look at what the constituents are. There were a few odd ones. The question really becomes, what other things may become regulated when it comes to leachate out of landfills that would prohibit the use of recycled water, or might dictate that we find a different way to treat the leachate, segregated or something, or valve out the recycled water side of the operation when they come in, things like that. Operationally, I think we can handle it. But yeah, we have received some past information on chemistry concerns that we're looking into.
My recollection is that when we agreed to start taking it, that it was sent off to a lab for analysis. And I think the contract also says that if there's any issue with recycled water, that we can, upon fairly short notice, stop taking it.
Absolutely. We're in the process of going through and actually working on updating the contract, and so we have the opportunity to double check on that. And I'll look into it, but I would think that'd be a fairly, not to be flip about, but almost a no-brainer if those constituents are going to put something, a large-scale project that we're working on with recycled water and the health concerns surrounding that we would find we could opt out, and it would be upon them to figure out another way to handle their leachate.
There was the notion that they would be, when I say notion, it was more than a notion, but there was the idea that they would be doing pre-treatment at some point before bringing it here.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and if they're at risk of being cut off on fairly short notice, it might behoove us and them to have the conversation now about their thoughts about the potential for adding in that pre-treatment, and or where else they might go if we can't take it.
That's a good point. I know they've had some good success with that. They've been trying to use, I think, trees as basically to biologically absorb some of their leachate. And they've been having pretty good results with that. And I think in our last discussion, they were looking at it as just a matter of the trees scaling up enough to be able to take. They one day hope to be able to deal with it all on site. So ultimately, I think what they're looking at is the kind of the interim. Where do we take this until we've got enough, basically biomass to absorb this and transfer it.
I thought that they had considered some sort of actual mini treatment plant.
That was going to be part of their permit renewal.
Digging back on our expertise.
That was going to be part of their permit renewal, and that didn't happen when the permit was summarily renewed.
Okay, that'd be good just to see that. That's fine.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, go ahead on to attorney's report.
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and then we'll go on to any director's reports. Any comments? All right, we'll go ahead and recess and do closed session. Conference with labor negotiators, unrepresented employees, government code 54957.6. Sam designated representatives, board of directors.